Okay.
Hello everyone, it's 10 Types, and I'm joined again by budgetptcg. We're doing a tier list ranking all the viable theme decks. And so we have all the ones from, I believe, Crimson Invasion on, and so that's pretty much all the ones you should be seeing. There are a few fairy ones though. What are they?
There's Resilient Life with Sky Guardian and Enchanted Echo. And I would say Enchanted Echo, that's the one that you can evolve with. It's got the EV that you can attach energy and evolve, and it doesn't do much damage, doesn't get knockouts. Just use it for fairy evolution challenges.
Yeah, but those aren't here because they're bad. So yeah, what's the first deck we're gonna go over?
Destruction Fang.
Okay, yeah, this deck's not too good. I think it is the best dark deck. Um, it's not particularly good though. Most of the attackers are not great. It's not the worst, but it's not particularly good.
Yeah, it's not great. I mean, I'd put it as in terms of tier three. It, like you said, it's the best dark deck for dark challenges. It's really the only deck you have. It's got the stage one and Hound Doom, the stage two and Hydragen, which so you have evolutions. They do okay damage and get you some knockouts, but all in all, the deck isn't overly effective.
Yeah, it's not like completely useless though. Solazzo's also kind of good, but yeah, I'd say tier three.
Yep. All right, so the next deck is Clanging Thunder, and this is just a really bad deck, I would say. It's in the don't play this category. Um, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I have not played it much. I think I only played it like once or twice. It like is really bad though. The attackers are all pretty underwhelming, and the damage output's not great, and it's also just really inconsistent. So I think the biggest issue with the older theme decks is they're inconsistent, and I think Clanging Thunder is really bad.
Yeah, it is one of the I think three or four dragon decks we'll look at. So it's got a dragon evolution line, but again, it's just very inconsistent.
Yeah,
So the next deck is Imperial Command,
yeah.
which is slightly better than Clanging Thunder, but it's still not real good, I don't
Yeah,
think.
I'd just put in don't play this. It's like there's so many water decks and it's so bad. It's so inconsistent. It has good cards. Like the Empoleon's really strong. And has like some ways of accelerating energy, which is kind of nice. But like it doesn't work. So most of the time you just don't do anything, which is really bad.
Right, it's got things like the Obama Snow, which lets you accelerate when you play it from your hand and such, but it's got Aqua Patch, which if you're looking to pick up Aqua Patch for an expanded deck, you can pick it up. Only one copy though, but yeah, it's not real good. Probably it is a don't play this.
Yeah.
So then we're on to Mock Strike. So we're starting to get into better, more viable decks, and this is one I think you see on the ladder sometimes. It's a decent dragon type attacking deck.
Yeah, it might be the best. I mean, there's like Soaring Storm, which is good. Um, but it has like a decent stage two. And it has like an interesting engine. You got the Lucario, but you need both the Lucario and the Garchomp. If you get both those, you're pretty much set. It doesn't do a lot of damage with most of the attackers. I mean, they're pretty big damage, but they're a lot of energy usually. I do think the Gumshoes is decent though. It's not amazing though because they need Pokemon in their hand, your opponent's hand. So if your opponent doesn't have Pokemon there, then you're just not going to be able to really do much. I'd say it's probably tier two though. You'll see it a lot, and it's solid.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a tier two or tier three. I might even lean drop it down to a tier three, but
Yeah, yeah. Let's do that. I guess.
I mean, but for a tier three, it's when you do see you run into it. When it sets up with the Garchomp and the Lucario, you're okay, but it doesn't set up very often. There's only one Lucario too, so you're
Yeah,
really
that's pretty
hoping to
bad.
to hit into it.
hmm what's up next?
All right, so the next deck we have Twilight Rogue for us.
Yeah, with Lycanroc, and that one's okay. Like you got some decent attackers. You got Malamar, which is nice. You got most of them are fine. It does like decent typing as well. But I'd say it's still tier three.
Yeah, I think tier three. I would. Yeah, I don't think it can go higher than that. It is if you have a psychic evolution challenge, it's one of the better decks for that because you have the Dusknoir stage two, and Malamar and Salazzle, so you can have a lot of evolutions, and it works some.
Yeah, but it's still tier three.
Yeah.
And then you also got a really fun deck here, which is I misclicked. It's what Tropical Takedown is that what it's called?
Yep. Tropical Takedown, which yeah, as you said, a very fun deck to play. Not always overly effective. It can work, but not always.
Yeah, the Alolan Executor has like a lot of health. I think 160, and it can do decent damage for one, like a lot of damage for one energy. It's but it like Alolan Executor is really good, but it has bad typing, which kind of hurts it. And it has this kind of toolboxy feel, except all the other pieces in the toolbox are all pretty bad. So I'd say I'd stay at it's probably just below Mach Strike in tier three, I think.
I think that's fair. Um, as you said, the Alolan Executor is a good Pokemon, and it's 160 HP on a stage one. It can do up to 120 damage for one energy. Getting up to like 100 damage is usually pretty easy. And then you have the one attacker that does more damage based on your Alolan Pokemon in play,
Yeah,
which you can get that set up decently also. That's a Alolan Marowak for two energy.
yeah, and you also have the Alolan Sandslash, which is like a not particularly good engine, but you just draw an extra card every turn, which is kind of cool. But it's
Yep.
not super. It's not like super effective most of the time.
No, but like you said at the start, it's a very fun deck to play. I would encourage you if you haven't played the deck, just try it out because I think you may enjoy it.
Yeah,
So getting on to the next deck, we have Hydro Fury.
yeah, and this deck's also fun, and I think it's one of the harder decks to play. The attackers are a bit underwhelming. I think there's a lot of attacks that put your opponent to sleep, if I remember correctly. But you can also like you have Magcargo, you have Delcatty, you have Swampert, which are all really good engine cards.
Yep.
And you also have some interesting. You have like the Master Royal to accelerate energy, which is really important. But the deck's a bit underwhelming most of the time, even if you get it set up well. Like the payoff isn't too good. I'd say this is still a tier three deck.
Yeah, I think you're right. And there is some sleep, like you mentioned, but also actually there's just one more that paralyze,
Oh
which
yeah,
is even a better special condition because they can't get out of that unless they have was it the escape
a skateboard.
board? Yeah. So yeah, not a great
Yeah,
one.
is
So
this top of
tier
tier
three is
three though?
fair.
You think? I think it probably is.
It could be. Tropical takedowns. When that works too. I'm not sure which I
Yeah,
would put above which.
yeah. Okay, I'll put it like near the top. And then we have Leaf Charge, and Leaf Charge is not good. It has the Sceptile, which is okay. It has
Yeah.
Manectric, which is okay. It has a bunch of like mediocre Pokemon, and it doesn't. It sets up horribly. I'd say
Right. I mean,
it's like one of the worst decks in the game.
yeah, this one's a don't play without any consideration. I don't think. Like Obama Snow, so stage one does 80 damage for four energy. So you
Yeah,
just,
it
you
does
know,
accelerate though, so
it,
that's
it
nice.
does.
But
But yeah, not a good deck.
yeah,
You got a lot better.
what's up
So then we
next?
have Blazing Volcano,
Ooh,
and one of the favorite of the older decks, and we're starting to get into the good decks
yeah,
with this one. And this was, I think, considered to be the top theme deck at the time when it came out, and was, it's still even potentially some people see it as a top 10 deck.
yeah. I think it's. I'm not sure if it's top 10, but I'd say it's tier two. It's also one of those decks that's hard to play. You have the Magcargo, which is good for It's good to just be able to set up, but it also isn't very fast at setting up, and you only play one of it, and then you get the Blaziken, but that's really slow. And then the Heracross and Entei, they're really hard to get up early game. Obviously, Heracross, you need the Blaziken up to be able to do big damage, and Entei, without like Magcargo and without Blaziken, it's hard to consistently do big damage and get the energy on. So I'd say it's probably tier 2.
I mean, I would put it at a tier 1 myself, but it is getting it set up is tricky, and it doesn't always set up. Once it does, you're in really good shape. The Mag Cargo, like you said, is a stage 1, only one of, but it lets you put a card on top of your deck each turn with the smooth over ability, if people aren't familiar with that. And then that pairs well with the Blaziken, but that's a stage 2, where you can discard an energy. Oh no, that lets you attach an energy
you
on it.
accelerate and then
Yeah. The discarding one is
shuffle, I think, where you search your deck for I think 3 basic energy and discard them.
Right.
And Entei also discards energy, but I feel like even if you're against some of the more like beefy attackers in the game, you're gonna struggle to one shot them. And they're like always gonna one shot you. I think the fact that Blaziken doesn't do big damage is a bit unfortunate. And it also discards energy, which seems like it has synergy with its ability, but it doesn't really, because you can't accelerate back to itself, which is problematic. I feel like it's not quite tier 2. It's good, but it's not like great.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I can see putting it at tier 2 if you want. I think it might be top of tier 2 then.
Yeah, I think so.
This could be the most. It is a more complex deck, and it just works differently than a lot of decks. So if you're looking for a challenge of a deck, something new to learn to work, this is a good one to practice with.
Yeah, definitely. I don't love the fact though that it sometimes just doesn't set up very well, but it has some interesting things. And also the Houndoom line is kind of cool. You can like draw and set up with that and also do damage. So, but
Right.
yeah. And then we got the
Stormcaller.
Yeah, this deck's really good, I think. Ampharos like paralyzes and can just win games, and Zipstriker's also good, and Naganadel.
Yeah, this is now we're getting into the really top decks to me. And now we'll have to see. Maybe this one's an S tier. This is the first one I think that could be there.
Yeah.
This is, I think, the best lightning deck in themed. It's got good damage. It's got evolutions if that's what you got to do. And even once you get stuff in the Lost Zone, the Raikou 120 for 2 energies on a basic is good too.
Yeah, I do think the best lightning deck. There's also Soaring Storm, which is kind of a lightning deck, but this is a very good deck. I don't love the Raikou in the deck though. Like once you get your Ampharos up, it's decent, but even then you want to be hitting the bench with Ampharos. Ampharos usually just kind of stands on its own and like carries you. Raikou's okay, but you often like start with it and then it just dies. So that's kind of bad.
That's true. It is because it's mostly evolution line, so throwing a Raikou out early just to get beat up on and sacrificed is not an uncommon play with this deck. Mm-hmm. Since it is really leaning on the Ampharos to win, it can be difficult to set up, but it does have a high comeback potential.
Yeah, I think it's definitely like the comeback deck in the game. Certain decks are able to kind of get out of it pretty easily, like specifically I think the Rillaboom theme deck, because you got Pokemon Center Lady to remove the paralysis. That can get pretty bad because obviously they can just play it and then they're not paralyzed anymore. I think it's like probably top of tier 1. It's not one of the best. It is one of the best decks, but I don't think it's S.
Okay, that's fine. But you do think it's probably the top lightning deck if you take Stormcaller out as being a mixed deck. Soaring Storm. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, and then on to another really strong deck with Relentless Flame.
Yeah. This is probably S, right?
I think it is. And there are people that would argue it's the best deck in format in themed. I'm not sure. I don't think it's quite that. It's even debatable it's the best fire deck. I personally would say it is, but you can make arguments. Fire's got so many good decks.
Yeah,
You have
definitely.
you have Charizard at stage 2, but with Roaring Resolve, it puts the energy onto itself and then can do big damage with it.
Yeah.
Uh, Rapidash with its agility, with the coin flip for immunity to damage and effects. Obviously, we all love and hate it both. And Nidoqueen, once you get that set up as a stage 2 to draw in your cards, it's quite strong once it gets going.
Yeah, and it's one of those decks that doesn't feel like it has anything bad in it. So it's probably the fact that Charizard also doesn't need much maintenance and can also one shot anything just makes it so strong that
Yep.
once Charizard's set up, it usually doesn't roll through a board because it doesn't have a lot of health for a stage two, but it
Yep.
can do it can just like be such a big threat that like once you're going, you'll be able to stream attackers, especially with that Nidoqueen. You also got Rapidash, obviously as like a annoying stall Pokemon, and one of the better stage twos in the game as well. So I'd say,
Yep.
yeah, I'd say it's definitely S tier.
Yeah, and Farfetch'd is obviously a nice little setup card, and Brock's Grit being able to get back in like a Charizard after it's knocked out, as well as the energies that you've been discarding and stuff. It's a pretty well constructed deck.
Yeah. Then we got Torrential Cannon.
Torrential Cannon, yeah,
Um, this is a deck I like a lot. It's strong. Like the attackers are all really good. You got the Blastoise, which is kind of like Charizard. It accelerates, but it's from the top of the deck, the top 6 cards of the deck.
yep,
So you're gonna miss sometimes and not be able to attack, which is really bad. But it can accelerate to anything as well. And you got that Golduck, which is just so good because it's really good against other water decks because you can snipe their bench. But it doesn't do like a ton of damage, unfortunately. Amnesia on that is good because you can stop them
yeah,
from certain Pokemon from attacking. But I'd say it's tier one, tier two.
yeah. And it does have the Pidgeotto, which gives it an engine, which you don't always get in a deck. But yeah, it's a 2 or a 1. I would agree. I'm not, it's in
Yeah,
that range.
I'll put it. I think it's tier one. There's so much fire, in it. There's not really much grass, so it's a really good typing, and I think it has good matchups, which is good for it.
Okay, and then the next deck we get to is Battle Mind.
Yep. Here it is. Yeah, I don't think this deck's that good. It's pretty slow to set up most of the time. It doesn't have like a lot of good items and supporters, so that's pretty unfortunate for it. And it also the attackers are all really high maintenance. You got like Turtonator, which is big damage, but just so much commitment, and you got um, like Incineroar, which is good, but it's not great for a stage two. You got Darmanitan, which is again high maintenance because you like lose all the energy, and also you got Salazzle, which is a really good draw engine. But the
Hmm.
deck I think only plays 15 fire energy. I was playing against it earlier. They like ran out of energy because even with Fisherman, you can run out of energy if you're trying to draw a ton of cards every turn and also discarding with your attacks. So I feel like it's good, but it isn't. It has can sometimes have bad late games and also bad early games.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like the deck more than you, but I does have its shortcomings. Now, when you said it doesn't have good supporters, though, it does have Welder,
It
so
does, yeah.
which is one of the better supporters
Yeah, it has
in the
Welder,
game.
but you need Welder as well. So like if you don't play Welder with the deck, you will lose pretty much. So Welder is obviously very good, but it makes up for some of the shortcomings of the deck, and you can recover it with Mewtwo as well. But the deck
Right.
doesn't. It feels kind of clunky most of the time.
It is, yeah, and you are concerned about running through your energy with this deck for sure. It does do big damage though, like Turtonator with 50 per energy discarded off any Pokemon fire energy off any of your Pokemon. You have the Incineroar that boosts damage too. It is. I find if I need to do knockouts for a Dragon Challenge, this sometimes is the better choice because Turtonator I can probably get a couple knockouts per game, whereas the other decks you don't always attack with your Dragon type.
Yeah. Oftentimes though, when you do attack with Turtonator, you do like lose because you're like no matter what happens, you're essentially going to be completely vulnerable the next turn, and you need another welder. You need a welder the turn you use Turtonator, and then you need a welder the turn after, which can happen during late game with Mewtwo, but then you're also burning all this energy with Salazzle to make that happen. And you can't obviously fish them in the same turn you welder. So I think it's tier 2 and probably below Blazing Volcano.
I think that's fair. I think
Yeah.
that's a fair assessment. So
Um,
then we have Lightning Loop.
yeah, this deck's pretty not good. It's not a good lightning deck. Because you got Stormcaller and even Soaring Storm, and it doesn't
Yeah.
do like the attackers are all kind of bad. We were talking about how Turtonator was awkward to set up, and this deck has Zero Aura, which is like Turtonator, except you don't choose how much energy you discard. You have to get rid of all of it, I believe.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have Welder. You have the Magnezone, but I don't think I've ever gotten that set up. It has no engine. The attackers, there's a few decent attackers. The Dodrio's decent. The Raticate does decent damage, and even the Stunfisk is okay, but it just is so inconsistent, and even when it sets up, it's not that good. I say it's in like top of don't play this.
Okay. I mean, I think it could be a tier 3, but the thing that makes it look really bad is the decks that were coming out before were so good, and the decks that are going to follow it up are so good. This is like just it's kind of like why did they decide to make this deck in the middle of all this good stuff?
Yeah, exactly. So I guess we can. I guess it's like bottom of tier 3. It's not good though.
I wouldn't recommend playing it because you just have so much better lightning choices. Why would you ever want to
Yeah,
go with it? So if
yeah,
you want to put it in tier 3, that's fine.
yeah, yeah.
All
I'll
right.
do tier 3.
Okay. So then we have Laser Focus, which is one of the psychic decks, which is limited for choices.
Yeah, it's essentially like the only true psychic deck. Like Battle Mind's not really psychic, and Forbidden Light's kind of what's it called? The one with Lycanroc, whatever it's called, is kind of
Yeah.
psychic, and but it's like it doesn't actually have a lot of psychic Pokemon, which is kind of bad.
I know it's the most psychic, but half of your attackers aren't psychic because the Gumshoes, which is decent, does 90 for 2 on a stage 1. The Silvally, which does 120 for 3 on a stage 1, are also very good attackers in the deck. So
Yeah,
but
and even the Tauros is decent.
yes, it
Uh,
is. Now it has the Auto Know, which is with the hearing ability, lets you draw once per turn with the
U-turn
U-turn
board.
board.
Yeah,
So if
only
you can
after
get
you get knocked out though, usually. So you're
right.
probably using it. So you're not using it more than like 6 or 7 times per game, because sometimes you'll like start it. It's a decent starting Pokemon, but its
Hmm.
attack, I don't think I've ever used its attack to actually heal. It seems like it could be good, but I've never used it for that. And then, like, it relies a lot on both Malamar and Necrozma. So usually, if you don't get both of them set up and a special energy on Necrozma, it doesn't work. And
Yeah.
you only play 2 special energy, so it's pretty awkward.
Yeah, I mean, right. Necrozma doing 100 for 3 energy isn't great. Once you get the special energy, it does 160, which is very good, but that is inconsistent to get set up. So, I mean, to me, it's like a tier 3 or tier 2.
Yeah, I'd say it's tier 2. It's like bottom of tier 2. It's underwhelming, but it's not unplayable. It's certainly viable. Just it's not also particularly interesting. But I'd say it's bottom of tier 2.
Right. And it is a deck that you certainly will come up against because it is one of the limited choice of psychic decks that are viable.
Yeah. Um.
So now
So
we come to what I would argue is the best deck is Soaring Storm.
yeah. I think it's better than Relentless Flame. It's not. It has like everything that you'd want in a deck. You have good setup with Pidgeotto and Alolan Grimer. You got
Yeah.
good early game attackers with mostly just the um,
Yeah,
Thundurus,
Thunderous.
and then you got like amazing late game with Dragonite and then
Yeah.
Lantern, and you also got some spread with Tornadus. So
Yep.
it's one of those decks that just is so good in like every aspect of it, and its trainer lineup is super consistent as well.
Yeah, yeah. It's got a good set of trainers that work with the deck, so it's just a very strong deck. I mean, every card is good. I mean, you probably could get rid of Pidgeot,
Yeah,
but other than that, you want to keep everything in it pretty much.
yeah. So and in Dragonite, it's one of those stage twos that's very strong in terms of health, very strong in terms of damage,
Yep.
and obviously amazing ability. It's pretty much it's the backbone of the deck, but the deck also doesn't require Dragonite to be good, which is really impressive. So I think it's definitely the best of the deck so far.
Yep. Okay. Good. Yeah. So top of S tier for the moment. So now we come to Towering Heights, which is, you know, a good, probably the best fighting deck
Yeah, definitely,
to
I'd
choose
say.
from.
It's very good. It's good typing. It's decent typing. Fighting's pretty good. Um, and has decent weakness, like a weakness that's not hit, so that's good. And it also has some really good attackers. Notably, Throw is really strong, and the Seismitoad line with the Palpitoad is also
Yep.
very fast. But I'd say it's like middle of tier one. I think it's definitely better than Torrential Cannon, but I don't think it's better than Stormcaller.
No. Yeah. I think that's a fair placement for it. Certainly a strong deck. Some better ones, but yeah.
It also has Mew, which with the bench parry, which is really important because there are some spread decks, but also like even minor spread, like Blaziken or Tornadus. Those can
Yep.
really cause big trouble because you will also be damaging your bench, and you want a little bit of damage for the throw. And sometimes, if you can manage to attack with Seismitoad, then damage on your bench is good, but you don't want too much. And usually, just like one or two attacks with the Palpitoad is kind of what you're looking for.
Right.
It has the Groudon is a bit underwhelming. You can accelerate and then like do big damage, but the deck doesn't have energy acceleration other than that, so you won't really get to attack with it too much late game unless you're getting free turns. However, the one really good thing about it, which is probably might be the best part of it, is the Garchomp, which is so strong. I mean, normally it just does 120 for two, and you have to
Yep.
discard, which is mediocre, even a bit underpowered, I'd say. But then if you're behind on prizes, you do 80 more damage. So then you can one shot like anything pretty much, and
Right.
you just do massive damage, and can also almost play as like a revenge deck, similar to Stormcolor, where you get behind early and then you just sweep your opponent because uh, Garchomp is just so
Yeah.
strong. But then sometimes if you fall behind, you just lose as well. So that strategy doesn't it's not consistently good.
Yeah, it's a little, getting the deck set. I don't. The deck doesn't set up as well as some of the stronger decks, but once you're there, it's good. And with Garchomp's comeback, if you fall behind a little bit, you can come back. Being behind a prize, one prize, say in the trade, is good because you're just, just knocking them out one shot to kind of get back in it.
Yeah. So and then Unseen Depths, and
Yep.
I really like this deck. This is probably my go-to deck. Um, it's so good. You got the some of it's really good. The Empoleon is so strong. It can just copy the Prinplup to snipe anything on your opponent's bench, and completely obliterate their setup. So if it gets Empoleon, um, and your opponent's not set up yet, you pretty much just win. If you also get that Ambipom up turn two, you pretty much just win. Not always, but often. And also, that's the big two things. I think they are some of the best Pokemon in the game. If you didn't see, I made a tier list with the best Pokemon cards from the theme decks, and I put those as two of the best because they're so scary to go against, and the deck plays multiple cards that just completely obliterate your opponent. You won't consistently get them up super early though because the engine's a bit lacking. You got like Pyukumuku, which is underwhelming. as a setup Pokemon, and you only got a few options to search Pokemon. No onboard draw engine, but I think it might still be the best deck. It's really strong.
I mean, I think it's S tier. I wouldn't put it at the top, but you know, you can. It's a little inconsistent. That's the difficulty. A lot of it is, can you get Empoleon up or not? And the draw is a little light on this deck, I think.
Yeah, I'd say I think it's better than Relentless Flame. It also does have a good matchup against Relentless Flame because you got the Fion and the bench sniping, so you can deal with Rapidash, which is really nice.
Yeah.
Fion can just essentially win games if your opponent only has a few Pokemon. You can just like clean up games early, even with something like Golduck, which is an okay attacker. And also the Kyogre can definitely win you games at the end because it's tanky HP combined with its ability to accelerate energy, essentially guaranteed at the end of the game. I think it's the second best deck. Let's put it there, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
Now Sword and Shield decks. So
Right.
what's the first one?
So Cinderace.
Oh yeah, this deck's really good.
It's good, and it's I think overlooked some because there's just so much good fire stuff out there. It gets skipped over between which Charizard deck is the best is what people debate.
Yeah.
But
It has some really good attackers though. Um, Specifically the Drampa's quite nice, 80 for 2 on a basic. You do mill yourself too, which can be pretty horrible at times, but generally it's not too costly. So
and it has 130 HP, which is getting that
Yeah.
extra 10 above 120, which is more common, will help you survive some hits.
Yeah, so it's one of the stronger attackers in the game. The Cinderace is good. The Ninetales is a solid sheep poking attacker. It also sets up pretty well. It's just a good engine in terms of supporters. It has no like onboard draw engine really. You got Sudowoodo, but that's not really what you think of. But I honestly think this deck is S tier. I think it's not as good as the other S tier decks, but I think it's S tier.
Okay, I mean, I might put it at tier 1, but if you want to put it bottom of S tier, and it
Yeah.
does now, we start to have professors' research in theme decks, and it's got 3 of those, so that helps you get going with the deck.
Yeah, especially with like you have some discard synergy. You do play Pokemon Catcher as well. I don't
Yeah.
remember if you play 1 or 2.
It's just 1, and it's a coin flip, so it's not
Yeah.
great, but it's the only gusting you really get in theme decks, so it's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, the Blazing Volcano does play Guzma, which is really good. But
That's right. Yeah.
yeah, I think some of the other theme decks play Pokemon Catcher as well. But this is a strong deck, and Pokemon Catcher it's really good. It's not necessarily fun to play because you just won't do anything half the time. But it's a strong card and will win you games. So I think it belongs there.
I think, yeah, and it's just, keep the deck in mind. Don't overlook it for the other strong fire decks.
Yeah.
So then Inteleon theme deck for the next of these initial 3 decks in the Sword and Shield block.
Yeah, this one's not too good. Most of the attackers aren't great. You got like I don't know, nothing stands out as amazing.
No, I mean, you've got Drednaw stage 1, but it's 4 energy to do 130. 130 is fine, but 4 energy, that's not good. Inteleon, the stage 2, does 100 for 2. You could put an energy back in the hand, which is good, but 100 really isn't enough for a stage 2.
Yeah, I think the Mantine, I believe, is the Pokemon, and the Cramorant are both they're both okay. Like the Inteleon's not that bad, but it's not that good either. I'd say it's probably top of tier 3, maybe even below Mock Strike, probably.
Okay. I mean, you could even argue that it's tier 2, but
Yeah.
I mean, you have much better choices for water decks.
Yeah,
in
and
it.
you
and
will
I-
see this deck as well, which is like I'd say it's probably in terms of plays like top 10, borderline top 10, but it's not a particularly good deck. It's pretty underwhelming.
And I gotta say, I find it kind of deflating when I play it that I'm playing the Inteleon and the Drizzile, but they're the bad Inteleon and the bad Drizzile from that set. So it's kind of like always a reminder that, oh, think how good this deck could be if only.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that is true of the Cinderace and the Rillaboom, too. Like, there's a really good
Yeah.
Cinderace and a really good Rillaboom, but obviously
Yeah.
Inteleon's so much better and the theme deck's so much worse. But yes, so speaking of Rillaboom, that's the next deck,
Yep.
and that's a decent deck. I'd say it's tier 1.
Yeah, I think it's a solid tier one. It's the best grass deck. There's not a lot. I don't. There's really not a lot of competition for it either.
Yeah. Um,
So a lot of evolutions for those challenges. A lot of you have big damage Rillaboom doing 180 for drum beating, for 4 energy, which is a lot. But 180 is huge damage. You can't do it again. But then you have drum roll, which is 90 plus 10 to their benched.
yeah.
So and then you have the Gossifleur and Eldegoss to set up. Gossifleur's call for family to search for 3 basic, so that's one more than most, and then Blessing of Fluff with the attack, which you accelerate 3 energies from the deck to one of your bench Pokemon. Just getting the deck set up with that, or with like Snorlax, which is a big tanky basic at 150. That's 3 or 4 energy to attack. Sometimes it's just a
Yeah.
wall you shove up there while you evolve.
Yeah, and you also got the Maractus. You got the
Yep.
Whimsicott as well. So some funny coin flip stuff, but they can be really good.
Hmm.
And I think Eldegoss is really what carries this deck, as well as
Yeah.
um, Rillaboom's really good, and Snorlax. They're very tanky, and then you have
Hmm.
a decent amount of healing cards, this is I think pretty much the only deck that has substantial healing, um, and that can be really important because obviously just getting in like another turn with your Rillaboom is so good,
Yep.
and you as I said have Pokemon Center Lady, which removes special conditions, which in certain matchups is very important. Pretty much just Stormcolor, but it's
Right.
good.
Right. One Pokemon Center later, two potion to heal 30 with those. So
Uh, Only one Pokemon Center Lady, you said?
yeah, only one. So
Okay.
that's yeah. You wish it would had another one. Wouldn't mind dropping one of the 4 hops to put in a second
Yeah.
Pokemon Center lady.
It does have a good engine, though. Like, how many research does it play? Is it like two?
I think it plays three
Three
research, so it
research?
does
Yeah.
get you going. 2 Poke Kid because you have and 4 Great Ball, so a decent chance of getting your evolution set up.
Yeah. And I like that the Sword and Shield decks, the early ones, tend to have just very fair engines that kind of
Yep.
make up. They don't have engine pieces in the deck, but as Pokemon, but they have solid supporters and items. And then the Rebel Clash theme decks. So which one is it next?
Zamazenta cover will do first,
Yeah.
which is probably the best metal theme
Yeah.
deck.
Yeah. I think it's definitely. I mean, there's only that and Zacian, and Zamazenta is
Yeah.
better. I'd say it's probably tier 2. Like right below Blazing Volcanoes where I'd put it. So
Okay, I can do that. I mean, I like the deck I think more than you do, but it's still high tier two is probably a fair placement for
yeah,
it.
it's Zamzenta is okay. Duraludon's pretty decent. Both of those are good attackers. The Bisharp, is good.
Yep.
If you get the 3 Pawniards, it's amazing. But or the 2 plus the one I evolved from.
Right.
But if you don't get that, it's kind of underwhelming. Yeah, 60 for 2 is not bad though. And then
Or even
the
if you have one Pawniard, 60 for one with 120 HP is
oh yeah,
still.
1 Pawniard, yeah. Um, that's decent. The Pharaoh Thorn is underwhelming, but then you got the big powerhouse in the deck, the Corviknight, which is the tankiest Pokemon in the game.
Yep.
If you discard energy on second attack, you have like 270 health, which is almost impossible to one shot. Its weakness is also nice that it's not weak to fire.
Yep.
That is what keeps it in the game. I think its typing though in general is pretty bad. It's just really unfortunate against fire because obviously pretty much all your Pokemon are weak to it.
Yep.
It also, what's it have for an engine like Pokemon search and setup? Does it have
It's got down to 2 research. It has 2 Sonya, for two
Yeah.
basics or two energy. But obviously, you have your evolutions. You got to get two Pokekid. You got your mandatory four hop,
Yeah.
and it's got Dan, so you get to play rock paper scissors with your opponent,
Yeah. Um,
and a
the
couple metal saucer, which are nice.
yeah, Metal Saucer's good. It's a card that seems like it should be really good. I mean, it is really good, but in the theme deck, it's not consistent enough to be particularly good. Like, you're not going to be able to play it exactly when you want it. It's usually just getting ahead on an energy here or there, which is good, but it's not like game changing, I wouldn't say. But yeah, say tier 2 is solid, and then
Yeah.
Zacian.
I just want to say, I do think the Ferrothorn's a little better than you give credit to. You know, it's three energy for the second attack, which it's the first attack is one energy for 30, where you flip three coins, 30 per heads, which
Yeah.
isn't terrible. But then the second one, if you get the three on, does 100, and you can move it off, which is a nice, if you sometimes get it with the three energy and then slide them off to a Corviknight
Yeah.
to help that going is not a bad play.
Yeah, I have found though that I guess that's not bad, but then when I do that, my opponent usually doesn't KO my Ferrothorn, and then I'm stuck there. So, like,
Yeah.
they you pretty much need to switch. How many switches the deck play? Is it just two?
Let me take a
It's
look.
probably two.
Yeah, two.
So
Now
if
you can do the first attack for one, but you know you're flipping and maybe doing 30
yeah, so
damage, which isn't great.
I feel like the first stack's not the worst, but like it's okay. But as I said, when you move the energy off, you often get stuck there, and your opponent now just gets like a free turn to set up while you're just kind of flailing your arms around. So it's okay, but it's not consistently good. But yeah, Zacian, this is worse. I'd say it's like
Yeah,
top of tier 3. It's not that much worse than Zamazenta, but it's worse.
it's worse, and it's not as good if you're doing a metal challenge.
Yeah.
And that's the main reason to me when I play Zamazenta, because I need metal knockouts or damage or evolutions, and Zacian's just worse for that, which therefore, and it's a worse deck, so why would I play it?
Yeah.
So yeah, Unpheasant is just much decidedly worse than Corviknight if
I
you compare this.
guess it does do more damage, and it's one of it can be consistently tanky as well with its first attack, which is
Yeah,
nice. I like it a lot because it can really be a good wall, and it just it's hard to KO, and also it's less committal than Corviknight. It doesn't have as big a
yeah,
payoff though, like a much smaller payoff. Corviknight's like invincible every turn you discard, so you can if you get a bunch of energy on it, you just kind of win. Unfez's not as good. The other stage one, specifically the Berserker, the Galarian Berserker, isn't particularly good, and the Probo Pass
no,
isn't that good. It's okay, but then Zacian's also not. I don't think as good as Zamazenta because it doesn't have the damage reduction. So I think top of 3 is fair.
yeah. It does play two, besides the two metal saucer like the other. It does play two Pokemon catcher, which is a nice thing to have. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's coming up short. And it shows you the great discrepancy in typing up for deck strengths, because Zamazenta we just did what is tier 2, and that's the best metal deck, whereas like fire and water just get a lot of love.
Yeah, definitely. I think in the Sword and Shield block, there are out of the 4 sets, 3 of them had water. So, yeah, that's pretty crazy. But now to Darkness Ablaze, right?
Right, and yeah, Galarian sirfetch'd will be the first
Yeah.
one.
This one's this one's not that good. It's significantly worse than Towering Heights as a fighting deck, but I'd say it's like bottom of tier 2. It's okay. It has okay typing as well, but yeah.
I mean, I think I'd move it up tier 2 myself. It has certain things going for it. Um,
Like what?
the All right, so it's got Sudowoodo. That's a very good card,
Yeah, but
right? You
lots of nice have
draw.
Sudowoodo. So.
No, I get it. The Galarian Farfetch'd is is
This,
pretty good.
yeah, or the
And
Sirfetch'd.
Sirfetch'd, I mean,
Yeah.
is the stage 2, and it's unusual in that there's 3 of the stage 1.
Yeah, that is nice.
Usually there's only 2, so that makes it a better option. You're doing 180 for 3, so that's huge. Now it can't attack again until it leaves. You can't
Yeah.
even switch to like the first attack. You can't attack at all.
Wait, you can't. I thought you can. I thought it can't use this
Oh,
attack.
it can't use Meteor's Health. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. So you can use Pierce, but you can't use Meteor Assault the turn after. Sometimes you can kind of alternate attacks. You can't. You have to leave where you can use Meteor Assault again.
Yeah.
Now they give you 2 Bird Keeper and 2 Switch to kind of help with that. The 2 Bird Keeper are nice. I'm not sure if that's not as common. And now you
Yeah.
start to see Turbo Patch to potentially accelerate energy because they are big energy costs. Like Hippowdon is just massive for its energy cost and such, which makes the deck difficult.
Yeah. I feel like the Galarian Sirfetch'd is a strong attacker, big damage, decent health, and not crazy expensive, especially with those Turbo Patch. But then like
Yeah.
Stunjourner and Hippowdon are really bad because they just don't like do much most of the time. So Galarian Sirfetch'd pretty much has to carry you through the whole game. You do have the Doug Trio, which is it's kind of that annoying agility attack, but it's only 30.
Yeah.
It's a fair first attack, but you really want to be like using agility, that type of attack. It's dig here, but you want to use it over and over. And when you're only doing 30 per turn, it's just not very good. So I'd say it's tier bottom of 2. I don't think it's
Okay.
it doesn't consistently have anything that's amazing.
Okay. I mean that's fair. It's not a very appealing deck to pick up. It's not enjoyable. I gotta say because you have these like Stonjourner and stuff that's like massive energy cost and 4 to retreat. So basically, it's there until your opponent knocks it out,
Yeah.
and then you're kind of hopefully setting up your bench, or you're just gonna lose.
Yeah. Now Galarian Darmanitan, this deck's decent. The attackers are expensive, but not crazy expensive. Galarian Darmanitan is a lot like Rillaboom. You don't have energy acceleration, other than I think Turbo Patch, but the attackers are all decent. I'd say it's probably tier 2 still, definitely, but
Yeah, it's tier 2, but comparing it to Rillaboom I think's first attack does 90, doesn't it?
yeah, both attacks do
Plus
10
10.
more, but
Right, so it does less, and it doesn't have the
yeah,
acceleration.
but it is a stage 1, so it's easier.
That's true, but to getting the energy on still is the big factor.
Yeah.
The fact that Galarian Darmanitan's 2 types can be a plus at times also.
Yeah, it gives it. It means that specifically against the metal decks, which could be really bad matchups because the some of your Pokemon are weak to that. I know your Galarian Darmanitan is. I don't remember if Beartic is.
Yeah, Beartic's weak to.
Beartic's weak to metal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so now you can hit them for weakness, and that's really cool. But you're not going to consistently get the Fire Galarian Darmanitan up because you only play one of it, but that's okay. And then you have some like solid attackers. You got the Suicune is a decent basic. You got the Kangaskhan as well. The Kangaskhan's amazing. I think it's one of the like best basics in the game, honestly.
Yeah, basic where if you were knocked out, you're doing 120 for 2 is good. It's just, the big issue with the deck to me is that you need a lot of energy on all your Pokemon, so making things happen is tricky.
Yeah, I'd say it's just above Galarian Sirfetch'd. I think that's a decent placement.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. And then to the last 2 theme decks, we'll do Drednaw first.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, this deck's okay. You got some decent attackers. That Samurai is really big. It's one of the hardest Pokemon to KO, and it just has a solid damage output. Returning 2 energy to their hand is actually really detrimental sometimes as well.
Yep.
If you're obviously aiming for the one shot though, so honestly it doesn't really do anything most of the time. But you got some decent attackers. Drednaw's okay. Ability to paralyze is kind of nice. It can win you games. You also have the the Cramorant, which can do big damage if you discard your Arrokudas. It's a lot of
Yep.
combo pieces, and obviously it only works once unless you play like Nessa. And then the deck has some strong attackers though, and it's not crazy to power up. I'd say it's probably like mid tier 2.
That's probably fair. I mean, some of the specifics, the Samurot's 160 HP and its shell armor ability reduces damage by 30 by attacks. So it is tanky. Does 120 for the 3. 120 is just not quite enough, which is the trouble there.
Mm-hmm. The removing energy though, I think
Yeah.
it's an okay attack.
It's right, it's okay, but it's just okay, unfortunately.
Yeah, it does trade well at like something like Dragonite though, so that's nice. Like the removing energy makes that trade good. Yeah, and the
Yeah, it
damage
makes it
reduction.
viable. I mean, the Drednaw, like it's 140 on a stage 1, which they have 3 of again, so it's more reliable. Um, the 80 for 3. Again, the energy cost is high. And the second attack does 140, but you have to have 4 energy. So it's just things are expensive at this point, I think.
Yeah, the attack costs for some are
Yeah.
that's the real issue, but that's a decent deck. And then now we got Charizard, everyone's favorite or least favorite. And this is a good deck. I'd say it's like mid tier 1 probably.
Okay, I can go with that. I mean myself, it's the Charizard's very good, as people know. 170 HP. It does for 2 energy on the stage 2. It does 100 plus 50 per Leon discarded, which you have 2 of, and you get the boost of 30 if you played it that turn. And you can have the Battle Sense, which does help you draw, gives you the draw. Look at the top 3 and put one of them into your hand. Discard the other 2 cards. So that's good, although it's a stage 2. So by the time you have it set up, you're probably in decent shape. I find it a little tough to get going. I got to say, and the Yan Mega is quite good. It's free retreat on a stage 1. You can do with the U-turn attack for 2, does 50 and switch. So you can kind of do the hit and run and behind something tanky.
Yeah, I also think the deck has good typing. It's fire type, obviously, a very solid type.
Yeah.
Unless you're against water, in which case a lot of the good water decks have a lot of Pokemon weak to grass. So then you can go in with
Yeah.
Yanmega. If you're against a fighting deck, you can go in with Lugia, and
Mm-hmm.
I think it has a lot of versatility, a lot of power. It is a bit inconsistent though. Probably out of all the top decks, it's the least consistent. Its engine it only gets an engine once you have the stage 2, which is
Right.
absolutely pretty not great. But it does big damage and has some really good attacks.
Yeah, I mean, it's inconsistent. It's why I don't always like to play it. Once it's going, like if you compare it to the other Charizard from Relentless Flame, it's got more HP, and you're not damaging yourself or discarding energy. So once it's set, you're just smashing your opponent turn after turn for like 150 or 200 late in the game. But it's just, do you get set up?
Yeah, I do think Yanmega in the early game, like a turn 2 Yanmega plus Leon is just so good because 80 turn 2, especially if you go first, is really detrimental because it just one shots a lot of of evolving basics, and I think it's decent. Like the Sudowoodo is also good for setting up, so and I think it's able to use that pretty well. And also that is an option against like lightning decks if they specifically Stormcaller because you can hit them for weakness. So I'd say it's like the diversity of attackers is really what helps it out. Yeah, and just having Charizard is very good here too.
Yep.
And I think that's all. So I hope you enjoy the style of video. Tried something. We've done stuff like this before, but hopefully this one turned out decently. And we're probably going to do, I obviously did a theme deck video like last week, I think. And so if you enjoy this type of content, I'd appreciate if you commented that down below. Also, there's more theme deck style stuff we might do in the future. But also if you like it, I'd appreciate if you like the video or even subscribed. And I'm just excited to see you in the next video.